Hey everyone, hello, my name is Laurent Caniciani and I'm known better as Bonaparte333 on the Procreate community. This is my first ever video tutorial, so bear with me. I got a pretty bad cough. Anyway, I just want to take this opportunity to talk about my process and yeah, this video was actually a 40-minute video at the beginning and I sped it up twice, so it's just around 20 minutes. I apologize if it's a little too fast, but I thought it would be better to have a 20-minute video than a 40-minute one. Like, nobody wants to sit through that. I don't think so anyway. So anyway, this was a commission piece from the people of Procreate, the great people at Procreate who make the best app for painting on the iPad. And it's always cool to work for them because they really give you a lot of latitude. So they wanted to have a special illustration to celebrate Halloween. And I submitted several different illustrations, and one was a teenage pregnant zombie. Uh, the only um, the only mandate they gave me was to reinvent the jack-o'-lantern, which gave me, you know, food for thought. But eventually I came up with two or three different ideas, and this is the one they wanted to develop. Um, so what you have here, usually, I mean, I worked several ways. Some of my illustrations are done rather fast, in a couple of sittings. For me, that's fast. Some other ones, more I guess story oriented, tend to take a lot more time to develop. And yeah, I work a long time on some of these illustrations. Like this one was really long. Um, Mostly because I tend not to have a totally set in stone plan where when I start, and I like to have things evolve and develop as I go along, especially story wise. So elements will pop up eventually and get manipulated and whatnot. For instance, here I didn't start with a very definite sketch at all. I could have sketched it more in detail before beginning to paint. But I actually had a friend who acted as a zombie in a video clip I worked on a couple of years back, and I made this big makeup on her, and she had a really nice physicality about it, about being a zombie. So I asked her, well, you know, let's do a little photo shoot and explore what we can come up with this zombie character. So basically, I did this as a little exercise with her, and we came up with several poses, several ideas for the physicality, the anatomy, hand positions, and all that. And eventually, I just use all of these different pictures as a starting point, just to get inspired. Not in any way like something I'm trying to copy, but they're more like explorations. Things you could do by sketching too, but just it's just another way to get inspired. And
Yes.
yeah, so my images usually start in mostly in black and white. I feel more comfortable working with shape, light and shadows, and instead of working with line. Actually, I used to draw a lot in sketchbooks and do very detailed kind of drawings, but I always like painting better because you can actually attack the forms more easily with shade. You know, with it feels more like a three-dimensional shape when you're painting instead of using a pencil when you're more focusing on the line, the contour. I do a lot of sculpture, so I'm very comfortable with working with volumes, and so that's why I attack most illustrations with a black and white painting first. I find it helps me focus on the forms, and I tend to work on the coloring later. And it's usually pretty messy. I mean, you can see at the start of the video that things start. This actual character started much more friendly looking, cartoony looking, and she'll get more and more a little more dark as the image progresses. A lot of my illustrations actually start out like that, more cartoony, and end up more dark. A lot of people seem to think that I have a, I mean, I don't know, like, I really enjoy doing darker themed stuff, but I do have a very cartoony side to what I do too, so sometimes they don't really know how to separate themselves. So, anyway, so this image, yeah, I had to find the sweet spot between trying to, I mean, it was a pretty, I didn't want to offset anyone with the idea of a pregnant zombie, so it had to be pretty um, humoristic. But at the same time, what works best in horror, I guess, is if you have a very funny idea, but treat it more or less realistically. I think it works better. If it's just too cartoony, it doesn't work on the same level. So the the zombie character started. She looks a little bit too manly for me right now, and she's gonna get more and more feminine, especially in the face and the shoulder areas and things like that. So you can see there's a lot of stroboscoping going on. It's because I use a lot of when I work. Um, I dim down the opacity of the layers a lot and bring them back up, and it's usually because I want to see if I have an underlying layer on which I'm working on. If when I'm painting on a layer over it makes a difference, if it's better or not. So I use this to go back and forth to see it. Um, about the story of this image. So yeah, pregnant zombie. Some of the things that got into the image as little I don't know, I call them story development elements. Like you see a lot of baby bottles. At one point, I thought about having a guy's head on the counter there, and with his skull open when his brains coming out, and yeah, of course she's a zombie. She likes brains, but that's a little too gruesome. So I figured, oh, why not have her get ready for I don't know. She's expecting to have a baby, obviously. So she uses the brains. I mean, she eats brains, so she would feed brain juice to her baby. It kind of makes sense, in a weird, twisted way. So she has those juicers, and she's milking the brain juice in it. Um, some ideas like the little flower in her hair actually come from my friend when she posed for inspirational pictures. She brought one of those flowers she had and put it in her hair, and I thought that was really funny, so I kept it in there. Um, yeah, so basically, story element wise, it's not that apparent in the final image, but you can see at the back there's a window back there and it's boarded up. So what I like to think about, it's it's something the viewer probably will never think about, but I actually go through the whole process doing these illustrations of trying to make it feel like it actually has a background idea. It's like, well, actually, in my mind, a zombie cannot get pregnant. So she was probably a human pregnant girl before, and she got bit, and she became a zombie. But in her mind, she's still expecting the baby to eventually come out. And that's why the at the back you have this boarded up window. It probably was a family that was resisting a zombie infestation, and eventually things got sour, and now it's basically probably a zombie family living in a boarded house. But it wasn't, they weren't zombies before. But it explains why the window is boarded at the back. So all these little elements like that, for me, they kind of make me enjoy the whole process of developing the whole image as a story. And that's the reason I like doing illustrations. Mostly about doing stories. I enjoy sculpting more than painting, actually, but the sculpting, I mean, it limits you in the way that you can't really tell a complex story because you don't have any surrounding elements, or you can do a character, but then you don't have the environment to tell what's going on around it. So that's why I really enjoy painting and doing illustrations. A note on the technical side, this was a pretty big canvas. I tend to use a lot of bigger canvases now that Procreate has 4K size canvases. And whenever I'm delving into something serious that I know I want to push toward, like a finished, polished look, I really tend to work bigger sizes because you never know when you might want to get it printed, um, and it's important for me to work on something big, and also it enables you to put more detail where you want it. So for instance, I knew I was going to work on this zombie face, and it doesn't take that much space in the whole image, but I still want to be able to push the expression, the little details of the rotting skin and everything. So that's where it really counts. Um, on my iPad 3, pushing it with 4000 by 3000 pixel size document doesn't enable you to have many layers. So I tend to work with only, well, I have no choice. I have to work with 4 layers. And this sometimes is a little constricting, as you can imagine. So what I usually do is, if I want to explore something more drastic and I need more layers, I'll duplicate the document and I'll use the same the duplicate document as a testing area, where I use the full 4 layers to basically do whatever I need. Like if I so yeah, that's it. I use it as a test ground for pushing some ideas further. Other technical things, little tricks I use are using other applications, like for instance Snapseed or Photogene, or even Photoshop Touch, whatever works as far as image editing goes. It's not for painting purposes. Procreate really, I do all my painting in Procreate, but whatever I need to tweak stuff, maybe color wise, contrast wise, or basically I use other applications for that, and I re-import it afterwards in Procreate. Um, whatever works. I mean, it's like basically Procreate is a great painting tool, but you always kind of need those image editing options, and I use them the way I would use Photoshop, basically like illustrating in Photoshop. I mean, you need to have more than just painting tools if you want to work as fast as possible, and that's what basically painting digitally is all about. It's just faster, and you have more latitude than doing it the usual traditional way. One thing I wanted to say about the beginning of this video, you have a lot of you see that I tweak, I horizontally flip the image a lot. That's of course to keep a fresh perspective on the image. But at the beginning of video, you see a lot of vertical flips. I don't actually do that in real life. It's just basically because this image was started in the Procreate 1.9 beta, and it had a weird I don't know, bug where it would record horizontal flips as vertical flips, and I don't know, that's it. So something that could not be removed later. So that's why it does that. I don't actually do that, except once in a while. So basically, working with 4 layers, it's interesting because it's basically, I like the iPad because it feels like I'm drawing on real paper, and when you're working on paper, you have to commit to certain decisions. You can't, you don't have layers and all that. And working in Photoshop, it's great, but you also have an undefinite number of layers. So sometimes you kind of work in a safe mode where you have tons of layers and you group them, and it gets difficult to make big changes eventually because you have to manage all these layers and you kind of lose your creative streak. So working on a big canvas like this and having only 4 layers, it's kind of a good in between working with actual paint, where you have to assume your decisions. If you're covering up an area with paint, well, you gotta live with it. And it's also like a great way to actually just have some latitude, but not too much. It's like I find it is the best in between both mediums. So for me, the iPad, it's a digital painting tool, but it's also like its own tool in between, like a full-fledged Photoshop and totally traditional approach. One thing I tried in this image that I've been bugging to try for a while is including photographic elements. So you saw at one point there I imported a frame. I had this frame in my shop lying around, and it's pretty cool, and it fit pretty well with the kind of ambiance of the setting I wanted in this image. So I took a big picture of it with my iPad and brought it in and included it in the image. But of course, I have to massage it a lot so it feels like it's actually painted in there, and I think it works pretty well in the end. You don't really notice that it's different. But I like the idea of mixing more actual photographic images. But I mean, not having a cloning tool and things like that, I mean, it makes it a little bit more difficult, but I think it's interesting to actually try that. And I will definitely do more of that in the future. Otherwise, what can I say? This lady, I mean, you can see her face has gotten more realistic, her expression. She went a long way from the cartoony start, masculine look, and now she looks pretty cool. I actually like that expression, but I keep fiddling a lot with it. For instance, I repaint a lot of it, but I also use a little application called Elasticam, which is basically the liquify. It does the same thing as the liquify filter in Photoshop, so you can tweak proportions around. And I export images from Procreate, play with them in there, and then bring them back in. It does take more time doing all this than having it in all these options in one program as in Photoshop, but it's kind of fun to be able to make very detailed images on something simple as an iPad. And people are always surprised when you tell them, wow, you made this on an iPad. And they tend to figure that you can't do complex things on a little tablet like that, but you can. You just need to be a little bit more patient. And in some aspects it is faster than working in Photoshop, because I am working directly on my screen like a Cintiq, but I'm not limited in being stuck to a computer to have it work. I can bring it everywhere with me, and I never actually draw, almost never at home or in my shop. I tend to want to draw. It's like my little secret pleasure. I go to public places and cafes and stuff like that, and I like to have, I don't know, people around when I draw. It's kind of fun, the energy. Um, yeah. Oh, these hands there that I put in, it's another story element. I don't know exactly what they are. I think they might have been from her when she transitioned to zombie. Maybe looking at herself become something else. And it's also a little nod to a Nikolai Lockenstern image where he has a bloody hand on a window somewhere. So it was my little nod to him, a great artist and a guy who actually made me buy my first iPad when I saw what he was doing with it. And I don't regret it. So basically, this video is nearing the end. Yeah, you can see this is part of the process. A lot of things get fine-tuned towards the end of the image, like the mood. I tend to push that right up to the end of the process. Tweaking contrast, color values, hot and cold colors. And they're just trying to fiddle around with the general mood to get it nice and balanced. Playing with the foreground element where you see the back of the zombie there, make it a little bit blurry to get some depth of field. And yeah, this image was interesting. It wasn't an easy composition to work with. I'll post the sketch on the group forum just so you see how far this image has come from the sketch. Although the idea is exactly the same, my little sketch was much different from this. And yeah, that's it. I usually never really know where I'm going with these long-term images, and I kind of like seeing how things develop, and it's kind of fun not having too much of an idea. So you let the image actually tell you the story instead of you dictating exactly what you want. So basically, this is Laurent Caniciani. I hope you enjoyed this little making of tutorial of expecting Halloween. And I'll see you next time.